And we're
Sure.
back on the Enterprise Marketer podcast. And I'm here with Matthew, who is the very first content engineer I have ever met. And you're with the Medicines Company. And you work a lot with Buddy, who we've had on the show before in the past. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So yeah, I'm a content engineer, and my history is actually, if we have a minute, there's a good story to how I became a content engineer. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, I started off I always knew I wanted to be in marketing. I actually enjoyed marketing, and I thought it was a fun thing to do. So I went to school, and this was in the early '90s, and everybody was making lots of money in the internet, and programming and computers were hot, and I had to decide where I was trying to go. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go into computers because I really had a knack for the math and the science of computers. So I went into computers, and I knew I wanted to use it in marketing. So as I came out of school, I went right into an agency as a programmer. And this was pre-Google Analytics or anything. I started writing JavaScript for us to track websites, clicks, hovers, everything. But we weren't using it on public sites. We were using it internally to understand how effective our content and our navigation and everything was.
Wow.
We were actually, how like in traditional marketing, they would bring like 30 people into a room and they would show them something and ask them questions. We were doing the same thing with the websites. We were evaluating everything, but I was writing the code to track all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I started to realize that we had so much data, whether it be on the servers or from this custom modules I was writing, that nobody was looking at. It was crazy. I mean, even for something simple as, like, at the time, what size do you design for?
Yeah.
Wasn't a standard at the time. So, and I could go in and I can say, these are the monitors, this is the color resolution. Like, I can say, like, look what we could do.
All this data.
Just look at it, please. And then through server logs, we could start to parse. I remember one of the earlier programs called Sawmill, and that would actually parse server logs and give you pathing, tell you the pathing that your users were taking through your website. And this was a revolutionary thing at the time. And I thought to myself, the power of data to deliver something is so strong. I want to do that because just about then, 2003 happened, and there was a big event in 2003. It was called CAN-SPAM. Are you familiar with CAN-SPAM, right? Not a lot of people know, it's a federal act, what CAN-SPAM stands for. And it stands for Controlling the Assault of Non-Solicited Pornography and Marketing.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that's what the acronym CAN-SPAM
joined in
stands for.
Pornography and marketing. They go hand in hand. Right?
Exactly. So here I am working at a direct agency. We're sending emails out, and I say, wow, per the federal government, we are akin to non-solicited pornography. Right?
Yeah.
I think we could do better.
Yeah.
I think we could, get this up a little bit, right? So that, I mean, for me, that was like this.
Is that what like the .marketing domain was for?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, we can do this. And so I really started to focus on one vision, and it's been my unifying vision throughout my career. And that is, one day, when somebody receives or views or pulls a piece of content from me, they're happy about it.
Yeah.
It's something that is timely. It's something that's relevant. It's in the format they want it. It has utility. They need it, right? And that's been a unifying vision for me since these early days of marketing. And everything I've done has been in service of that unifying vision of, if it's direct mail, if it's email, if it's search, if it's whatever it is, how can we use data to be better than that, right? How can we keep getting better? So, through there, and I kept growing in my roles of trying to do that. I wrote CRM systems for IBM where I, put some great clustering algorithms in. We didn't have AI.
Yeah.
I couldn't parse, unstructured content at the time. I had to tag stuff, and so we didn't have the power that we have now. Eventually, I decided to go back and get an MBA in marketing so that I could really work with the strategies and the technologies together to really pull that through, because I saw that gap.
Yeah.
There was a gap between, like, people, nobody goes to work and says, you know what I want to do? I want to send an email that 98.4% of people don't like.
Yeah. Some might.
Well, maybe.
If it's easy.
Yeah, right? But
They say 1%. That's a good.
very good.
That's solid.
1.6. Well,
Yeah.
Woo. We can double that, right?
Exactly. Just go buy another list.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing, and that's what it was. It was, let's go buy another list.
Yeah.
So, but people, as I find them, marketing gets a bad name, pharmaceutical gets a bad name, but as I find individuals working in all these organizations, everybody's good people. Lots of good people, well-intentioned people. They don't know. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know what they can do better. And that's how I started to work in content engineering, is working on the strategies and pushing towards the strategies and the technologies to make that happen and make that come together, because we put so much time into user journeys and researching personas and segmentation. Like, why would we send something that the vast majority of people find to be trash?
Yeah.
On the par of non-solicited pornography, right? I mean,
Exactly.
so that's how I got into content engineering, is through that vision of trying to do this. And in doing so, found intelligent content and found all the myriad of ways that we can write content and reuse content, because you may consume it in one way and you may consume it in another way. And that ebook may be worded for a 6th grade reading level for somebody, and maybe a 12th grade reading level for somebody else. It may be high level for somebody, but it may go into detail for somebody else.
Exactly.
And you can use these content assets to really deliver on that utility that I was trying to really dream about back in the day.
And so, because it's the engineer that is truly the one that can think of this stuff easily.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things we did is our son has an IEP, and so he struggles in reading and spelling and things like that. And we could never get the list from the teachers. We were like, can we get his modified spelling list? And they're like, yeah, and they never give it to. So we built a mobile app that and a portal that would allow all the teachers in the school to do a classroom list or a modified list and send it to the students, send notifications. They'd open up the app, you get it, you can play the game and all that stuff. And then they were like, hey, wouldn't it be great, since we got all the data, to see where kids are going, what words they're structuring and struggling with, and look at some of the correlation and say, you know what, let's generate an ebook for you based off of the words you say. And those are the kinds of pieces of content that a marketer, once you give them the idea and you start to say, look, we can do this, go out and now start to grab the design, grab some of the content, get the story together, put the storylines together, and then when you're ready, we will insert the content in there. And it's this, but you have to get the engineer to want to talk to the marketer and see that.
And I don't know how anybody not listening after that could not fall in love with data.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. There's no channel for data.
Yeah.
It's data. It's all data. Every channel you have, every asset you have has, everything you do has data.
Yeah.
And it's amorphous until you choose what to do with it. And you did something, you said, oh look, we had data, let's do something with it. Let's do something good with it. In that case, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that.
I mean, my job has always been a data guy, right? And it's, I started out as an XML geek.
Yeah.
Did a lot of BI work in my early years on R&D teams. And one of the cool systems, I built an 18-dimensional analytics services BI engine for MLS.
Okay.
So your multi-listing services, your real estate, 50 years of data. I could go through city and state, year, month, agents, offices, selling, listing, and get all the way down to individual values, and then pull out and look. And I'm sitting here going like, it's cool. It's like the Minority Report. It's like Inception. It's like, what report do you want me to make? Watch, boom, boom, boom. 3 seconds later, it's like, here it is.
But that's the partnership, right? Yeah. That's the partnership right there, saying, what report do you want me to make? Because somebody might not know that's possible.
Yeah. And the business side was like,
understand.
Just give us the reports we want faster.
Which is,
it's like, I can do that, but look, here's new reports. Or, hey, you want to see if that neighborhood is going to trend well?
Yeah.
Let's find like neighborhoods 2 years back and see how they did. And then and it's like you were sitting on Moneyball.
Recommendation engines.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's that feeling of Moneyball. It's like, look, I've got the data. We can prove that this actually could work and not, do what everyone thinks.
And that's the model for all content, right? It's the Moneyball model for all content. We looked at email and we saw low variable cost. Small to reasonable fixed cost, right? You got to create the assets. Low variable cost. It costs fractions of a cent to send an email. So everybody said, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to send more emails. So, but, that sending millions and millions and millions and millions, and then we blinded people to them. And now they're spending all this money still doing it in that model. But that variable cost is increased if you consider the variable cost, what's it cost me to send one email that somebody reads?
Yeah.
Not one email,
Yeah.
but one email that somebody reads. So now you have a multiplying effect in there. And on top of that, you have a lot more regulation for it. So it's a little more expensive in your fixed cost side as well. So, but it's easier, and there's easier interfaces. We made it easier to do that. But the data can help you solve that problem, because you can look at this and say, well, how do I change over? What is my money ball on this? How do I use statistics and analytics to understand how do I decrease my ROI, increase my productivity? And ultimately, what it comes down to me is I'm in service of the user. I'm in service of the consumer. I'm in service, like that's always been my vision, my driver. Is I want to make sure somebody is happy when they get something.
Yeah.
And what's the ROI on somebody getting an effective piece of content that changes behavior, that says, oh, I need this right now. This is perfect. Thank you.
Did you know Facebook video posts have 135% greater reach than image posts? Here's a tip. Know your audience. Upload video content that speaks to your most committed fan base who already know and like you. Their comments, likes, and shares will help spread your message and bring awareness to your brand.
I like to think of it as like if you ever went hiking in the woods on a trail, when you run up against the map, if it's right at the beginning of the trail, that's great, and you do a good job. But if you don't have your phone, you don't have the ability to capture it. It's when you get in and you're at a fork is when the map is really important. And that's what we're trying to do, is find the forks in the road and be the guide that shows them, here's the options you have. And that's when you find the thing really valuable. It's not maps the whole way. It's not an email every day and hope that you need the map and you'll get it there. But
it's also a partnership, because you have somebody that has an expertise in those woods and those trails, and knows what berries are bad for you, and knows which plants will make you itch. All right. And know which trees have the most beautiful birds. And so there's an expert, but there's somebody who says, I just want to go for a walk in the woods. If you compare those two people, like, Buddy and I, and we just gave a talk on the relationship between content strategy and content engineering. If you compare those two people into a really good partnership, and you can start to understand that the value the other person brings and the respect, the mutual respect of what it takes. I mean, on one side, you have executional, say, they deliver a manuscript or a headline, a tweet. I went to a conference. I was at South by Southwest, and there was a talk about the Oreo tweet. You're familiar with the Oreo tweet? Yeah, still dunk in the dark. Right? Won all sorts of awards. And they pulled up the list of people that were on the award for the Oreo tweet, and they said, seriously? It's 140 characters. Like, why do you need a list of like 30 people for this? But anybody who knows that, see, there's an example of not having respect for it. Anybody that knows knows the work that it goes into, knows that on Super Bowl weekend, there was a team of people working. There was an artist, there was a copywriter, there was an engineer, there was an editor, there was people that designer, there's somebody on the brand message, and there were people working. They didn't happen upon it. And say, you know what, somebody's watching the Super Bowl from home and they just like pulled up their iPhone and tweeted, you can still dunk in the dark. That's not the way that went down. There's a lot of work at every stage, and you have to have a respect and a knowledge of what every stage does, which is why engineering sits with content strategy. Now with IT. IT does their thing and they do it very well. But you need a relationship with content strategy. You need to be embedded with content strategy, but you also need to have a relationship with IT. And that's where the background comes in, is the respect of the technology, and we know what we're doing. We know what we're
it's almost
about.
like an ambassador, right?
It's very much an ambassador.
It's like I'm on foreign ground and I'm working with this foreign country, but it's like I have another interest in mind, and it's not the ones and zeros, but it's the empathy and the emotion.
And again, it could be a flaw in my personality, but I always think people are genuinely good people. People get frustrated with IT. That's not what I want. Why are they asking so many questions? This is why they have to make it so hard, or take so long, or anything like this. They don't wake up in the morning and say, I think I'm going to frustrate some people.
Exactly.
Like, they don't do that.
A few that
Nobody
might have,
does that. Nobody does that. There you go. I'm sure you do. But they've earned it. They've earned it.
Yeah, exactly.
But they wake up in the morning. People, in my opinion, wake up in the morning and say, I want to do a good job today. Because doing a good job and doing a bad job takes the same amount of work. Except doing a good job, at the end of the day, you feel good about it. And you feel like you made progress and you continually grow. And that happens in IT, that happens in content strategy and engineering and marketing and business and everything. Everybody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to do a good job today. Right? It's just the perspectives. It's the information that you have access to. Do you understand the full vision? Do you understand the whole journey, the arc? And that's why you need a respect for what everybody is trying to accomplish. And that's why you can consult, like you said, it's an ambassador role. It's a respect for, what they're doing over here, and it's a respect for what they're doing over here. And it's bringing these groups together,
people together,
to make great things happen. So,
Exactly.
but at the same time, you have to be able to talk on the strategy side because you need the respect there, and you have to be able to talk on the technical side because you need the respect there. And ultimately, these things come together, and you work with a lot of great people, and you do fantastic things.
Yeah, and I think one of the misconceptions I see in enterprises, especially between marketing and IT, is neither one respect the amount of work and time that goes into it. Each one assumes it's easy.
Or they assume that they're the only one in the world.
Yeah.
So, I bring my brand to maybe somebody in IT would be an example. We use IT as an example here.
Yeah.
So, well, I can't get to it for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Well, I need it now. I'm the most important thing in your universe.
Yeah.
Right. And it's an understanding of, well, at the same time, they're supporting 17 other initiatives. They are focused on what they're trying to drive for the year, for their milestones. They're trying to manage budgets. They're trying to do everything they need to do.
Yeah.
And if your CIO could say, sure, I'll hire somebody to do that, they would.
Yeah.
But they can't. That's not the way business works. That's not the way the world works.
Yeah.
What they're doing is they're juggling. They're saying, how do I best serve everybody that needs something? They wake up in the morning and say, I want to do good. I want to best serve everybody that needs something. But that's what happens because you don't see their world and they don't see your world, and then you get this clash. And I'm really happy here at the Intelligent Content Conference that, as completely unplanned, there's a theme, and that theme is that content strategy has come of age. It's being adopted by large enterprise organizations, so Fortune 100 organizations, and they're really starting to take on content strategy. But as we saw in Robert's keynote yesterday, in creating the ship and inventing the ship, we've also invented the shipwreck.
Yeah.
And that theme is the same thing that we talk about in content engineering, where the shipwreck is akin to that gap between strategy and execution.
Yeah.
Right, to get things back. And it happens both ways because execution wants to do something great, and they see the same thing, and they'll come to these same conferences and they'll say, I'm driven. I'm going to go add a taxonomy to our content. You can now tag it. You can cluster it. You can put it into XML schemas for repurposing, or I've implemented DITA.
Yeah.
And they'll push that back on the authors, and the authors will say, I'm really like redlining with the amount of work and content I need to get done, and you just made my job harder. Right? So they're trying to do good, and it doesn't work that way. And then likewise, on the content generation side, they'll say, we want to do that. We want content reuse. We want to be able to put it in multi-channel. We need something that automatically crops without having your nose here, on the image. We need it to be, more intelligent than that, and centralized and centralized analytics, so we can make good choices, and we can do that. And they're pushing it back to IT, and IT is saying, well, I don't get the whole vision. They'll deliver something back that's not a good fit, which is why, we've invented the ship, we've invented the shipwreck. But this role is now emerging, and it's being pulled along. It's like a vacuum that's being created as content strategy is being adopted, which I am actually super happy about. I love to see that content strategy is being adopted at high scales, because that goes to my vision of a dream of really doing valuable things that people need. So, it's an exciting thing, and I love that the theme is here, and I love that content engineering is something that's taking off. I met a second Cruz. You interviewed him the other day, but second content engineer I've met. So
this is one of the craziest events, because normally, like, an event for me that is on this par would be like the MVP summit at Microsoft, where I'd get to go in and there's Anders who created C#, right? And then is
it GIF or GIF?
Yeah, exactly. Or I'm hanging out with Dare, who, System XML, and we're talking about XML readers and the ability to actually have asynchronous write and read of streams, so we can put XML into the ability to edit and modify it and still have it live in a time that it doesn't have to deserialize and all this stuff. And you're just like nerding out. Yeah. And then, I stopped being an MVP, and I stopped going to tech events, and then it's like, I never found my the people
Yeah.
you geek out with.
My
And you
peeps.
come here.
Once I could talk to talk.
Yeah, and like Cruz is over here talking about e-commerce, and I'm
You're like,
listening,
huh?
and he's talking about .NET services.
we were
and
talking
all this
about
other
early
stuff, and
kind
I'm
of
like,
prairie dog for that. You're
yeah,
like,
exactly. It's like I do you peek your head over the cubicle, and you said, "Did you say my name?"
What?
And then you find your people, and it's like, oh wow, intelligent content
Yeah.
does have the blend and of marketing and development, because I was the opposite of you. I never wanted to think of myself as a marketer.
Yeah.
I ran, we had 2 million visitors a month. We had people all over the world depending on Geeks with Blogs for answers of stuff. And I was out there, I was building influencer programs that, we called it the influencer program, right? And we had 100 MVPs that were homegrown and 4,000 bloggers. And I'm teaching people about finding their voice and content strategy and all this stuff. And you would ask me if I was a marketer.
You wouldn't even,
I would've said, no.
You didn't even know you were.
Exactly. I'm like, no, I'm a developer.
Yeah.
Like, we're just playing with our toys here, and it's like somebody sees the Lego thing you're building and they're like, hey, we could use that somewhere else.
But that's the relationship. If you had a relationship with somebody that had an overall story arc or strategy, then, that's it. You were right there.
Yeah.
It
was funny. Like, all our customers were marketers, but I never I always thought of them as like the end user, right? It's like we're really working with IT, but we're interacting with these people, and I never really saw it's like, I'll help you get this strategy. Let's figure this stuff out. But I'm going to go over here and play in the toys for a while, too. And then finally, when you do see that.
Maybe my little innovation lab budget.
Exactly. When you had that time where you're like, I need to do both of these, and I need to see in the data. Yeah. The data is really what drove it in for me, too, is you see that I needed, like when semantic was a big thing and tagging, and if you have 100,000 blog posts on developer topics, well, I need to know, is this BizTalk? Is this ASP.NET, ASP.2030? Is it MVC? It's like, what are they talking about? And I have to look at the language, look at the keywords that they use, look at even like the class names they use, and saying, okay, no, that class name was introduced here, and so that's going to be tagged, and you're starting to build these AI components into it. To make it happen, but you think you're solving the only problem this ever is your problem, and not a bigger picture problem. But the data is what kind of
unifies it all. And it's funny you mentioned asynchronous XML. I have a generalized theory that I don't talk much about, but I keep it, and it's something that I look for in. As I said, you mentioned something before, and I was like, if I was interviewing you, that would have been a keyword to saying, get this guy. Yeah. Right. And it's the same thing. You don't need to look at code once you get experience. You can understand the way people talk, the way people think about things. You mentioned asynchronous XML, and the reason I think that's an interesting thing, the reason I key in on something like that, because back in the day, we didn't have anything like jQuery or Prototype or any of these things that we needed, these shortcut libraries to do HTML animations, to do asynchronous requests. You actually had to reload a page. Oh my gosh, the work that's involved. I have to wait till it reloads. Exactly. Right? So, but that stuff didn't exist. But the XML HTTP request was always in there. And in just saying those words, I alienated like 5% of your users that are listening to this podcast.
Maybe 95. But
maybe 95. Okay. So, but the important part is the story here, which is forget about the words. We had to do that from scratch. Yeah. And we had to build those things. So we understood how they worked and the difference between the browsers and how things worked. Yep. And likewise, when early development, we're working in C, we had to do manual garbage collection. And what that means is we needed, for people listening, we needed to manage memory and storage and processor. We needed to understand how your code did that because memory was expensive at the time. Yeah. Processors weren't that fast at the time. How many times did you crash your Mac because you opened 2 things? Yeah. Right. So, and that happened at the time, this was an issue. So we had to worry about that. But then Java and some other things came about, and this stuff started getting automated. jQuery started automating things, and it made it very easy for people. The layers and layers and layers and layers that made it easy for people. Fine, this is great. 10 years later, 2006 happens, and somebody releases an iPhone. Yeah. And all of a sudden, you're limited on memory. You're limited on processor. You have a smaller screen to deal with. And people say, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to deal with this. How do I handle this scenario? And the same thing in email. Hardest thing in the world is to find somebody who's really good at coding an email. Yeah. Because it's an old technology you got to use. It's so limited in the way you've got to do it. You find somebody, talk about a unicorn, you find somebody good that can do emails very well. That's a fantastic thing. Hold on to them. Yeah. Because of the way that works. But understanding how things work and having a root understanding of that so that you can solve problems in the future I think that's a really important thing, to be able to dive in and you may not need it today, but as soon as the next thing happens, VR happens.
Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden your gamer experience with video cards becomes a commodity.
Yeah.
Something that people are looking for, saying, how do I execute on stuff? How do I understand this?
Yeah.
And how do I tell stories in this? And it's not just technical, it's all over, like understanding. Buddy has a background in reporting, understanding how to distill out information and to tell it efficiently.
Yeah.
Right. This is the thing. He has a background in comic books, understanding story arcs.
Yeah.
And he'll tell you, understanding that any comic book could be somebody's first.
Yeah.
Or they could have been reading it for the last 25 years. And you need to have content in service of both.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing in technology, right? Anything you're doing could be somebody's first.
Yeah.
It could be something that they've been doing for a long time, but you need to understand the story arc. Technology has a story arc too. And that's part of the ambassadorship of what you're doing, is getting people to understand the story arc of technology, the 3-year plan, right? And which part do I need to tell you to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish?
What stories do I need to tell you about?
What's
how it
the
used to
arc
be?
of how this is going to grow into what it's going to become? Because people want to shortcut that. They want to tell you the end of the story. They want to read you the last page of the book first and say, this is what I'm looking for. The butler did it.
Yeah.
Now fill in the pages. Right? And that's a hard thing to do as a technologist and to get right, because there's so many ways. If you ever played Clue, how many ways can the butler do it? Right?
Exactly.
Who killed who in what room with the candlestick?
Books, right? There's only 9 adventures you could choose, right, in the book.
So there's lots of ways to fill in those pages, and it's like, you ever see the Hello World contests?
Yeah.
Right. Hello World, for anybody that's not familiar, that's the first program anybody ever writes.
Yeah.
It's called Hello World. You're learning a new language, you write a Hello World, and it's become tradition, and that's what people do. But there's also a contest that you can actually see how complex can you make it to output the words Hello World.
Yep.
Right. And there's some uber complex ways of doing this. So that's why you need this story arc of technology to understand the vision for the strategy and how you're going to get there over time and what that looks like. So that's, again, part of the ambassadorship of content engineering, is not over-engineering this section, because we may not need that yet. That's going to be too much work. We're going to put too much on the authors if we do this now, because we need to train them. Or right now, we're in a huge content push because we have something happening at the end of the year. I cannot stop them for 3 days to put them into a training session.
But maybe I can automate some of it.
Sure.
Right?
This is what I can do for you now.
Maybe I can do a batch migration for them to put everything in the fields where I think it needs to go, and then have them do verification.
Yeah.
And
then when you get to a point, you say, okay, this is the program that cut off to move this over here and to do this thing, and then we can do our training, and then we can roll this out, or we roll it out to some people, roll out certain functions to some certain groups. Right? There's an arc to technology as well, and that will get you to the next level, and the next level, and the next level, because engineering it's not the only thing in the world.
No,
somebody's got to use that.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, and we don't want to take authors and say, you know what, we're going to add about 15% extra time to everything you're going to offer. And by the way, you're going to be angry while you're authoring too, because that's going to come through. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be frustrated writing prose, and like every other
because we
word is going to be an angry word.
And we used to use the analogy of like data entry screens were like the stairwells of buildings. You don't paint them, you don't make them pretty, right? They're just data. But really, that's what somebody lives their life in.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to walk up and down a stairwell and only see concrete and smell concrete, or somebody smoked the cigarette down there 3 weeks ago and you still smell it, right? Nobody wants that.
Funny.
They all want to walk through the lobby and have the experience. So you can't keep it that way forever. You have to build.
Yeah. And what we like to say is we want content to be in service of the reader, of the customer. We don't want it to be in service of the technology that they're writing it on, right? So we can't have, when you need the creativity in the content, but you also need the structured elements of the content. You need to bring those two things together so that the content ultimately has to be in service of the user. Yeah. And so that's, another big part of the role, is doing stuff like that.
I think you need to start your own show and continue talking about this topic, because one, there's just so many people out there, I think, that have been doing this that could shine light on the need.
Yeah.
Because we're in this WordPress epidemic of CMS systems and rich text fields and worrying about what Office elements get pulled over in there, and not thinking of how valuable is this content, where is it usable,
Yeah.
who's using it, how can we morph and modify it, and then how can we render it?
I actually do have a podcast.
Oh, cool.
I don't know. Am I allowed to like say
Yes,
that on
no,
this? Okay,
promote
yeah.
it, yeah.
You know, I'd love to actually have you on. There's a great conversation.
Oh, cool.
So I'd love to have you on. It's called RX Digital Marketing.
Oh, nice.
And we have a couple of podcasts on there. Buddy has one on storytelling.
Yeah.
We blog a lot, and I have one on Martech,
Oh,
marketing
awesome.
technology podcast. And my goal is like this conversation for anybody that wants to go a little bit deeper.
Mhm.
You know, it's not a like you should do content strategy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
exactly. Here, let's talk
Yeah.
about an entry
Yeah.
persona or
No,
anything like that.
but
yeah.
it's if I'm gonna talk about something, I'm gonna give you something that you can use.
Yeah.
You know, something you can take away from that. And because of that, I don't post a lot. I'm usually about every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I put a lot of research into it.
Yeah.
The content is deep and it's good. But yeah, if you want to
Awesome.
check it
No,
out,
it'd be fun.
It's pretty fun. But yeah. It's,
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on the show. and
Sure.
I can't wait to continue this conversation with you because
Yeah.
you're my people now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm your friend.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do
Boom.
about that.
yeah.
So, anyway, it's great
Yeah.
to have you on.
Oh, great. Thanks for having me. This is great. And, you know, I've been watching your content on Facebook and stuff while I've been up in the room. And
Oh,
so
nice.
You've been, this has been a great thing. I'm really glad to have met you. I'm really glad you guys are here.
Yeah.
So, fantastic stuff. Thank you.
Awesome. We'll see you.
All right.